This is SportsRage Level 2 has begun. I am Gabriel Morency. Thanks to Andrew McKinnis for kicking it with us on the program tonight. So we got college basketball going on right now. We'll get back to the NBA. We're still scoreless in the National Hockey League with the Kraken and the Vegas Golden Knights. But St. Mary's looking to win the West Coast Conference Tournament Championship, in which, as I stated earlier, to some teams, this stuff doesn't really mean anything. To other teams, it actually does. We talked about Bill Self earlier, in which Bill Self is going to be resting a couple of his starters to get ready for the NCAA tournament. But if you're St. Mary's, this is a big game. As I was just saying with McKinnis that just left, I was just talking about this if you're just joining us. You know, say you had this ultimate year, St. Mary's, but you got drilled in the last game of the year by Gonzaga. Right? And now you make it back to the West Coast Conference Tournament final. You don't want to get drilled by Gonzaga again, and then your next game is in the NCAA tournament, right? Then you're sitting around for a week and a half here, and your last two games you lost to Gonzaga. It's not the mindset you want to be in going into the tournament. Now they'll get their confidence back, a little bit of swagger back, and St. Mary's will be a difficult team to deal with in a tournament. I don't hate McKinnis' ticket at 55-1, and I always talk about hedging is for gardeners, but at 55-1, he's right? Yeah, you got 55-1, they make it to the Final Four, man. You got an opportunity to jump out. Hell, they make it to the Elite Eight. Really, at that point, 55-1, just they sort of win 3 games, then you can start sort of managing it. But St. Mary's won't be an easy team to play just because of the style that they play. And we'll get into this in a second as we welcome back our Sirius XM Channel 159 audience. This is SportsRage. I am Gabriel Morency, the Pistol Players, officers, the people of us, and everybody else in between. It's conference tournament week, and the craziness is continuing. St. Mary's are up right now, 63-56, with $1:20 left. Man, it's just so. I'm looking at this. I'm thinking, can we get there? No, we can't get there. We're not going to get there. We're only at 119 points right now. There's not going to be like 17 or 18 more points in a minute and 20 seconds. I guess, we can hope for overtime for the overplays here. I would imagine that Gonzaga will get really foul crazy at the end and foul a lot, but it's the one thing that really, you watch these games, you watch as many as you do, you bet all the time. You can't like lose it or every missed shot, bad call or everything. But one thing that really, there's a couple of things that bother me about college and NBA basketball. I'll start off with college is I don't understand why in the modern era college coaches don't start fouling and putting the other team on the line with seriously 3 minutes left. I'm watching these games and these teams, their season's on the line. I've seen this a million times in the last 4 days type deal, watching all these conference tournaments where you're about to get eliminated and they are desperate. So they're trying, but their coach isn't helping them. Their coach is not helping at all. And so I'm watching these games, the SoCon was a good example, right? A lot of these teams, they're good. Eastern Tennessee was fun. Samford are dangerous. We'll get into Samford, why I think they could be a tough team in a tournament and cover a point spread, if not maybe surprise somebody. But a lot of these teams in college, they're not very good free throw shooters. Some of the elite teams are, but for the most part, you watch these college games and you'll hear, oh, they shoot 65%. This guy shoots 58%. This guy's their best free throw shooter. He shoots 72%. There's not that, it's not automatic, especially with the lower tier stuff. So you're trailing by 8 or 9, basically all night. You look up at the clock and you're like, man, there's 5 minutes left and all right, we just cut it to 6, but we can't get over the hump here. And time is not our friend. Or we're trading baskets. We're going back and forth, but we're not gaining any ground by doing this. I don't, for the love of God, understand when these teams are trailing in that situation, why, with 3 minutes, 4 minutes left, they just don't say, all right, just put them on the free throw line every time now. And we're going to stop the clock. The clock is barely going to tick ever. And we're going to play a free throw game. And we're going to let them take free throws. And we're going to take 3-point shots. And the clock isn't really going to move. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. And in fact, that's how Valvano won his national championship with NC State. I'm going back a little bit ways, but, never give up, never give up, never give up. May you rest in peace, right? Anybody who watches ESPN knows about the Valvanos, the Jim Valvano story. And when they famously won the championship and he was running around, it's one of the great moments in college basketball history. It was a big upset. They never should have won, and you know what I mean? So he's running around, and he's looking for someone to hug, but like all the players went one way, and everyone, it was chaos, and he's running around. And unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years later. Seattle Kraken just take a 1-0 lead on Vegas. They just scored right now. But that's what he did, right? He basically stopped the clock and just started fouling all the time, right? He put them on the line over and over and over in the last couple of minutes. Now, aesthetically, it's not, pleasing, right? I mean, some people it's frustrating. The last couple of minutes of the game takes an hour, right? But it's smart. You stop the clock, right? If you don't want to lose, it's, basically, I've said this before, and I've complained about this before over the years. I've said this, so this is a new rant of mine, but it's basically like being on death row, right? Your team is about to die. You're about to get eliminated, okay? You're on basketball's version of death row right now, and you're about to be put in the electric chair in 4 minutes, okay? And we're losing by 6 and 7, but we're running out of racetrack here, and, we've been losing by 7 all night, right? We're running out of time now for real, guys. There was 3 minutes left, and we're about to get fried in the chair. Would you rather just say, wow, you know what, we'll take our chances that something's going to change? Or would you say, how about we get a stay of execution for another 30 seconds? Yeah, I'd take that. Okay. And, okay, foul, put him on the line. Let's say the kid misses 2. Boom, you got the ball back suddenly. And you didn't even lose anything. You didn't lose any time. Most of these college kids brick this stuff anyways, right? I was watching, like I said, I've been watching a million of these games, bro. I watched one game. They literally missed 7 out of 8 free throws in a row, the two teams combined. And it was like critical, important free throws. Brick, clank, brick. I just don't get it. And the other thing that kills me about basketball, the modern basketball world in the NBA, is like when a team is losing and they get the ball back with like 20 seconds left and they just stand there and they don't shoot. It's like, you're losing the game, right? Like, no one's going to hold it against you if you just shoot the ball. Like, it surprised me for a bunch of stat whores that they are, that they don't. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would. Like, I don't, like, you know what I mean? Like, what happened to playing to the final whistle and stuff? You watch an NBA game now, and if there's a little bit of a deficit, they stand there for the last minute, just dribble the ball and stand there. It's like, just finish the goddamn game, jackass.
Laying points on the road in college basketball is an absolute landmine. I would not do it. I won't do it the rest of the year. I'm done doing that because it just consistently loses.
I mean, 3 possessions in a 9-point game in which the opposition now is the clock, not the actual team you're facing, right?
Right.
And these guys are taking up shots. I mean, it's just like, that's why it's the NBA.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Athletes in Canada, Wayne Gretzky, Connor McDavid, no longer can be part of these sports betting ads.
Now, what's interesting is there is technically a carve-out that will still let these athletes and celebrities appear in sportsbook ads, but it's only if those ads are slanted toward responsible gaming. So you could still have a Connor McDavid saying, hey, bet responsibly on TV in Ontario.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
4.22. The fastest man alive.
The guy just made himself a whole lot of money, did he not? By now holding the record for the fastest 40-yard dash. But if it's one thing we know is that doesn't translate into quality football players in the NFL. So somebody will bite and overdraft him because he simply ran faster than everyone else. It's just rinse and repeat.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The Las Vegas Golden Knights have just tied the hockey game. We're 1-1 right now with 13 minutes left in the second period of play in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle. 1-1 with the Kraken and the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Meanwhile, St. Mary's are about to win the West Coast Conference tournament, build some confidence going into the NCAA tournament. Another ticket is about to be punched, although we all know that they were going dancing anyways, and so are Gonzaga. We'll go over some of the teams that actually need to win or could really help themselves out with some wins, which it'll help you from a capping perspective, right? So I'll sort of let you know, right, yeah, this team can make the tournament still, but they need to win a couple of games. And there's a few of these teams that are on that cut line, on that bubble right now. So we've got a final 69-60. Wow. 69-60. St. Mary's beats Gonzaga rather, I'm not going to say easily, but they were in control all game. You know, they went wire to wire on this one. And anytime you hold Gonzaga to 60 points, you know, that's an incredible accomplishment. And especially they just lost to this team. I've just read this wrong, man. I was on St. Mary's at home. I'm on Gonzaga tonight. I read it wrong. Frustrating. We'll have to move on. It is what it is. No turning back. Siena and Niagara are ready to tip off. But so St. Mary's wins the West Coast Conference tournament. There's a lot more of this stuff coming up. I'll get you caught up to date right now with some of these other scores. Sacramento are pasting Milwaukee right now. It's good news, bad news. I got the Bucks, but I like the over as well. And the in-game total is now 244.5. It's 75-56 at the half. And we're at the half in Los Angeles. The Clippers are up 63-55 on the T-Wolves right now. For the hardcore degenerates, college basketball, Montana playing Idaho State. I think Montana are going to win this game, and they'll win right around the number. I actually think that tonight really was all that's left. You can't, can we really even put together a moneyline parlay on this? No. Niagara and Montana both to win is minus 278. We're going to have to add something else in here. And there's really not a lot. I guess we can go hockey here, actually. We could play the total of this Vegas game. We'll come up with something here. I think Niagara are going to win. I think Montana are going to win, but I'm not sure they're going to both cover. But I'm not like minus 244 right now. It's come down a little bit. So, all right. You know what? I don't think this Seattle game, I only bet on Seattle. I took Seattle plus 130, but I was leaning to the under. It's still 5.5 now, but I'm going to make it 6.5. With hockey alternate numbers, you can only add a goal to it. Like they only let you go so far. So alternate game total, 6.5 minus 275. And we'll parlay this. I'm doing this because I had freaking Gonzaga in a parlay with Montana. Now I'm a little upset. I don't have any action on this Montana game. All right, so let me get, I do think Niagara, do it for Jack Armstrong. I think Niagara are going to beat Siena Mist. And Montana to beat Idaho State. Minus 104. Accept change, yes. I don't really have much of a choice, do I? All right. And we're in. Oh, wait, no, I'm not in. God. Oh. They locked the hockey game, but I'm watching the hockey game. And Seattle nearly scored. I don't know if they thought that they did or something. The puck didn't go in, though. Man, that was close, though. So why are you doing this to me right now? As soon as I am about to get this stupid bet in. All right, here we go. Oh, now even better. It's plus 100 right now. Good. Now we can live with this. So we got Vegas, Seattle under 6.5, Niagara to win the game, and Montana to win the game. Let's get it. Coming off the loss with the over of the Gonzaga game. St. Mary's beats them 69-60. We'll take a look at the overnight games and get you the numbers for tomorrow. We'll talk about the teams that are on the bubble. I want to get to this story. We don't talk about politics on this show, but this story was just too good not to. This one was too good. How do we not let you know about this? As Aaron Rodgers is on a short list right now to be RFK's running mate, presidential running mate, vice presidential running mate, along with Jesse the Body Ventura. So I guess it's down to Jesse the Body Ventura and Aaron Rodgers. The media reports say that this is actually a true story, which when I saw it, I'm like, running for what exactly? Like, what's this Kennedy guy doing anyways? Like, to be honest, besides pissing off his own family, right? So what's he really like? What you think you're going to win? Like, what, like win what? Like seriously. Like, so when they say, like, is this running mate? I'm thinking, what are you guys running, the New York City Marathon, the Boston Marathon? What are you guys running exactly, right? I guess technically, yeah, he's running for president. He's not going to win. And I don't know if he thinks by bringing Aaron Rodgers in, but the guys on the NFL Network, I had the tweet here in front of me, and I lost it. They had a good one. They're like, yeah, fine, as long as Aaron Rodgers isn't a Surgeon General, which I'm sure Rodgers is going to get all angry about. How dare you joke about me? So on a more serious note, like if you're the New York Jets, like at one point do you realize that, you know what? like, you know what? Like we should probably think about getting a quarterback like this year. Unless like you want to go through what you did last year, right? And you don't even have Zach Wilson to blame anymore. Like the Jets, this Aaron Rodgers stuff, like whatever, dude. I'll tell you what right now. Like Kennedy, he's desperate for attention, okay? That's why they're doing this story. Nobody's paying attention to him, right? Like I said, running for what? All right, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not, you could argue that a 2-2 system and all that. You could have multiple, I get it. I'm not here to debate that. I'm just telling you, like, so what? He has as good of a chance of becoming president as I do. So it's like me announcing that Mick Mars, former Motley Crue guitarist, is my running mate. It's not true, but spread the word. Morency and Mars. It's got a good word, a good ring to it. Morency and Mars, 2024. It's like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I just say, hey, he's my running mate. What am I running what? Well, the only place I'm running to is maybe 7-Eleven later. But if you're the Jets, I'd be running away from Aaron Rodgers. So basically, you're the Jets. You let Rodgers basically dictate everything that you do. You have arguably the worst offensive coordinator in the history of the National Football League, and Nate Hackett on the payroll, because he's Aaron Rodgers' buddy, who didn't play a single game for you, and is, I don't know, going to run for vice president now. Okay. I got to be honest, though, as a Bills fan, good. Seriously, good. Right? Because the Jets actually have a bunch of good players, and if they weren't so stupid and built themselves around Aaron Rodgers, if they would out, and I said it at the time. I said, I don't know why the Jets just don't get Lamar Jackson, man. Like, that'd be scary. Right? Like, why don't the Jets actually get a quarterback? And I guess they thought they were Aaron Rodgers, but the telltale signs were there, right? And especially now, after everything that's happened, right? Like over this and that, and like I said, he's not young. He's coming off of a massive injury, and I know he's Superman and he has super healing powers because he's the smartest man in the world, and nobody is like him, and because he's smarter than everybody. He's unbreakable, but good luck with that, New York.
Laying points on the road in college basketball is an absolute landmine. I would not do it. I won't do it the rest of the year. I'm done doing that because it just consistently loses.
I mean, 3 possessions in a 9-point game in which the opposition now is the clock, not the actual team you're facing, right?
Right.
And these guys are taking up shots. I mean, it's just like, that's why it's the NBA.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Athletes in Canada, Wayne Gretzky, Connor McDavid, no longer can be part of the sports betting ads.
Now, what's interesting is there is technically a carve-out that will still let these athletes and celebrities appear in sportsbook ads, but it's only if those ads are slanted toward responsible gaming. So you could still have a Connor McDavid saying, hey, bet responsibly on TV in Ontario.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
4.22, the fastest man alive.
The guy just made himself a whole lot of money, did he not? By now holding the record for the fastest 40-yard dash. But if it's one thing we know is that doesn't translate into quality football players in the NFL. So somebody will bite and overdraft him because he simply ran faster than everyone else. It's just rinse and repeat.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I'm still taken aback here by St. Mary's easily disposing of Gonzaga tonight. 69-60 final score in Las Vegas, the place to be this week. Well, Vegas is always a place to be. Like, really, like, is there ever really a bad time? I will say it's hot as hell in the summertime in Vegas, but you can really pick, like, any weekend and be like, oh, it's a good week to be in Vegas. There's always something going on, but if you're a basketball fan, it really is second to none. I mean, there's games. Like, there's so many of these conference tournaments that are in Vegas, and the games are spread out through the day, through the week. So you've got the West Coast Conference Tournament that just came to a close. That was at the Orleans Casino. They've got an arena there. They just have a hockey team there, the Las Vegas Wranglers, in the East Coast Hockey League. But you got the Pac-12, you got the Mountain West, you got the Big Sky, Big West, like everybody, everybody's in Vegas. These conference tournaments, and it's starting to pick up. It's a slower night tonight, actually. It really sort of starts. Business is going to start to pick up tomorrow. It's by all things considering, it's pretty light tonight. Niagara up 13-10 right now on Siena. South Dakota State are up 67-52 on Denver. And Montana are up 27-17. So we played that parlay. Niagara to win, Montana to win, and under 6.5 in the Kraken game at plus 100. Hopefully we can get back on track here. After, we had a good run. We've been doing pretty well with these college games, but the Gonzaga game, I was on Gonzaga and I was on the over, so it's a little bit of a setback. The Clippers and the T-Wolves, though. This is a good game. It's an 8-point game, 63-55. The second half has just started. And the Kings are murdering the Bucks right now. They're laying 13.5, which we all know, and as Tommy knows in Master Control right now, being a Sacramento King fan, that no lead is safe with the Sacramento Kings, okay? So I'm not opposed to taking the Milwaukee Bucks at plus 15.5. In this game, because we've seen Sacramento time and time again blow leads, and Milwaukee won't tap out right away. They'll bomb a bunch of threes, and all they need to do is hit a couple in a row, and they'll be right back in this game. So I talked last night about the tweet of the day, and we had a great one with the Duff Light and Duff Dry as far as Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Gardner Minshew is concerned, the Raider quarterback situation. Today I saw a couple of good ones, but I saw one from, I think it was from Baseball Quotes, if you guys can get this up here. It was from Baseball Quotes, and they said, oh, this kid, yeah, it was Baseball Quotes. This kid is a legend. And I'm looking and I'm thinking, all right, what stands out about this kid? Number one, look at his face. Look, can you guys blow that up at all, enlarge his face at all? Is it possible you can make it bigger for people and for me even? Look at this kid's face. If you just took his face and took away his body, he looks like he's like 28 years old or something. Like little Braden Shutt here looks like a he looks like a ball player. Like, I'm going to be surprised if this kid doesn't make it. But what makes him a legend, get it back up here, is, like I said, look at his face for a 12-year-old. They're very determined. He actually looks like Pat McAfee a bit. He looks like a little Pat McAfee. I like what he says here, though. You know when they say, all right, who's your favorite athlete? Age 12 years old, 4'10", 80 pounds, favorite athlete? Myself. And I got to tell you, with that grizzled look that you have up at the box, kid, like you don't look like a little leaguer, man. You look like, this kid's like, this kid's chewing tobacco. You know what I'm saying? This kid's got he doesn't have like big league chew. He's got the real stuff. Oh, son of a, Vegas just scored to make it 2-1. Oh boy. All right, we got to keep this game under 6.5. But this kid, like I said, I got to keep my eye on little Braden Shutt. Remember him. Most of these kids that played a Little League World Series, a lot of them, there's a high percent of them that end up playing pro sports after, right? Matt Castle is a good example of that. Like, you always see the video of, oh, yeah, he made this. He was in the Little League World Series, too. I think Matt Castle, I think he was the only one that won a Little League World Series and a Super Bowl, actually. I can't confirm that, but I think that's a weird little sports trivia thing there. Who won the Little League World Series and a Super Bowl? Castle was a backup, obviously, right? But I think he won the Little League World Series, too. Or he might have lost in the final. All right, so it's 82-58 here. We got to get the over of this Buck game in here this evening. So, as far as the tournament is concerned, so some of these tickets are starting to be punched right now. And some of these tournaments really haven't started yet. And the Mountain West is going to be a fun one. That's in Vegas. And the Pac-12 tournament's in Vegas as well. And there's numbers up for tomorrow's games. And we've talked about one of the teams that every year, and this is the last ever Pac-12 conference tournament, but every year in these tournaments, there's always going to be a team that underachieved all year or for whatever reason didn't have a great year, and then suddenly they get hot. USC are that team right now. The USC Trojans, right? There was a lot of hype about the Trojans coming into the year. They had the nation's top recruit in Collier. They had LeBron James' son come in, and they had a bunch of transfers, right? And people were like, oh, wow, like USC are going to be a force, and they're going to be, they're going to be a big power, and they're going to be on TV all the time and all this. And then Bronny James had the heart issue before the year started. Collier got hurt. It's been a kind of a disaster year for the USC Trojan basketball team. But everybody's back. They're back on the floor now, and they're playing kind of with house money. Like, if you watch this team play, like, you can watch some teams that are 12-17 play, and you can tell they're a 12-17 team play by their body language. Like, you could tell. You're like, yeah, this team is done. They're over. The season's over, and they want it to be over. USC are thinking, you know what? We're as good as these teams are. We just didn't, we weren't together this year to show it. And I don't know if they can win it all and saying, like, pull it off and make it to the NCAA tournament. But everybody likes a story, right? You want a story? How about LeBron James' son having a cardiac arrest before the year starts, struggles all year, and suddenly his team and himself starts playing better, and somehow they make it to the tournament, and LeBron's at the games and stuff, right? I can just sort of see the script playing out here right now. But I think what happens is USC wins some games, and then they lose. I don't think they're going to win I don't think they're going to be able to pull it off and win the entire tournament. But I do think they're a play-on team. And people agree with me here. The so-called sharp market, but the pro market, anybody that sort of like follows college basketball and bets on this stuff, this is not a hot take of mine that USC are kind of a sleeper here coming into the Pac-12 tournament. And there's been a lot of line movement. On our screen here, we got 2.5 up here right now, right? They make this right before the show, or you guys just put it up. It's what's it say? We actually have the time there. Yeah, it's from earlier in the day. It's up to 3.5 right now, just for the record. And I bring this up not to throw them under the bus for the 2.5, but I bring it up because this number is going to go up, man. That's why I'm talking about it right now. The USC Trojans are going to be a super trend, almost too trendy tomorrow, right? And Washington are a dangerous team. Washington are firing their coach, too. So Washington are going out like, they're going to go out on their sword. Washington are super athletic, but they don't play great defense. They're kind of erratic and stuff. And being in Vegas, like, no one in Washington, I'm not going to say no one's going to Vegas, but like the Washington basketball community is not all super excited about this. You know what I'm saying? No, it's the end of the run. They got to get better. USC, like, there's a ton of USC people in Vegas. They're sort of going to have that home vibe for them going on here. Like I said, it's 3.5 right now. Hell, it was like 1.5 before. I'm seeing 3.5 pop up right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if this thing hits like 5 by tomorrow. And it's an afternoon game in Vegas tomorrow. This thing's at 3 Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific. So this is one of the reasons why I wanted to stress this and talk about the USC Trojans. I'll get to the numbers for the actual tournament itself. I think Arizona is good enough to win this. Arizona, the best team in this conference by far. They're right there for the national championship, but teams from the Pac-12 don't win the national championship. Teams from the West Coast don't win the national championship, and teams from the Big Ten don't win the national championship. Something that's not talked about enough with Purdue. When's the last time the Big Ten won the national championship? There's been a lot of good teams in the Big Ten over the years. They never win, right? When they get into the dance, like their style of basketball doesn't translate into the NCAA tournament. But Arizona, I think Arizona are as talented as anybody. They've got size. They can shoot. Like Arizona are super good. They're not great defensively. They foul a lot, and they turn the ball over a lot. Like you know what I mean? Because they play at a kind of a fast pace. But Arizona are dangerous. But I do think Arizona are going to win this Pac-12 conference tournament. But we'll get into USC's numbers. And I think USC could be a play-on team for a couple of nights here.
Laying points on the road in college basketball is an absolute landmine. I would not do it. I won't do it the rest of the year. I'm done doing that because it just consistently loses.
I mean, 3 possessions in a 9-point game in which the opposition now is the clock, not the actual team you're facing, right?
Right.
And these guys are taking up shots. I mean, it's just like, that's why it's the NBA.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Athletes in Canada, Wayne Gretzky, Connor McDavid, no longer can be part of these sports betting ads.
Now, what's interesting is there is technically a carve-out that will still let these athletes and celebrities appear in sportsbook ads, but it's only if those ads are slanted toward responsible gaming. So you could still have a Connor McDavid saying, hey, bet responsibly on TV in Ontario.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
4.22, the fat man alive.
The guy just made himself a whole lot of money, did he not? By now holding the record for the fastest 40-yard dash. But if it's one thing we know is that doesn't translate into quality football players in the NFL. So somebody will bite and overdraft him because he simply ran faster than everyone else. It's just rinse and repeat.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
This is Sports Rage Level 2 continues. The Twisted Tuesday. The Clippers are up by 1 right now, 70-69 on the Minnesota Timberwolves. T-Wolves are now getting 1.5 points in this game. We, of course, are on the T-Wolves plus the points. And Sacramento is still up on Milwaukee. Milwaukee are in trouble tonight. They're down by 22. The in-game total is right on the number right now at 236.5. With Milwaukee down by 22. College basketball, we got a tie game with Siena and Niagara. We're tied at 20. Niagara, we're laying 10.5 at tip-off. They're laying 7.5 right now. The game is tied at 20 with 7 minutes left. And Montana are starting to pull away on Idaho State a little bit. They're up 33-21 at the half. And Nickel State has just won in overtime, 81-73 against Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Not the Chamber of Commerce, to be confused with the Chamber of Commerce. Like, that's where we're at right now with 300 million teams in college basketball. But we'll keep our eye on these games. And we'll keep our eye on the T-Wolves and the Clippers game, sort of the best game of the night going on right now. And, of course, it's 2-1 for the Vegas Golden Knights after 2 periods of play in Seattle right now. The Vegas Golden Knights are up 2-1. Matt Rempe of the New York Rangers was suspended for 4 games. We can't play the clip of him elbowing the New Jersey Devil player because we don't have NHL rights. But yeah, it's on Twitter. It's everywhere. If you follow the NHL, I'm sure you've seen it. The 4-game suspension came down tonight. I want to get into this with McInnes, but we were caught up in the in-game stuff and everything else in between. But McInnes sent me, McInnes tweeted something actually about how if you're trying to defend Rempe, that he wasn't trying to elbow the player. He was trying to brace himself because he was about to hit the glass. You know what? That's a pretty good excuse, actually. Not bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, usually people come up with bad excuses why they do things. That's not a bad one, actually. Like, we'll give a little credit for it. I don't know if it was a personal attorney that came up with that. Personal injury attorney. But it's like, well, okay, it's not bad, but it's not true. So, listen, I don't mind fighting in hockey. And in fact, like I said, you'll notice there's been more fighting as of late. Maybe it's just Rempe. But it's not just him, but there's been a couple of more fights as of late in the National Hockey League. And, that's to be expected at this time of the year. Emotions are going to start to run high. And I think they've gone a little bit too far. Like in the Quebec Major Junior League, like they banned fighting like in the youth level all the way up. And like they're starting to really go after it more and more. But I don't have a problem with physical hockey. I think they've found a pretty good balance with it. But what Rempe did, that wasn't physical hockey. It wasn't like, oh, you know what, that was a hockey play, right? Like sometimes, you can like elbow somebody in the face in the corner, right? Gordie Howe used to break people's nose all the time, right? Like elbows up, fine, right? Like that stuff, you can get away. You can elbow someone and knock someone's tooth out and get 2 minutes for it. And it's not the end of the world. You're not going to get suspended for it. You're going to get a penalty for it, right? That's why there's a penalty, 2 minutes for elbowing. But there's a little bit difference of, you know what? I was in the corner fighting for the puck with the guy, and he slashed me, and he called me an MFer. And, yeah, I elbowed him in the face. That's all right, put me in the sin bin for 2 minutes. Okay. It's like the movie Slapshot said. They put you in the box, you feel shame for 2 minutes, and then you're free after 2 minutes. Right? Like, that type of deal. It's another thing if you're Rempe, and you basically line somebody up, skated like sideways across the ice at somebody, and randomly just got your elbow up that happened to hit the guy in the face, in the mouth area. Like, I got to tell you, like, Rempe for 4, like, that was a vicious play that he did. Like, what Morgan Riley did to the dude on the Ottawa Senators was nothing. Right? Like, he really could have injured the guy in the Senators. He didn't. Like, he just sort of, like, hit him and shoved him into the boards, like, with a stick to the face. But it wasn't dangerous what he did. What Rempe did last night was dangerous. Like, if he would have fully connected, Buddy would have been out for the year, point blank. He would have had a broken jaw. He would have been out for the year. And for what? Because you're trying to make a name for yourself? I mean, the NHL was right to suspend this kid for 4 games. I wouldn't have had a problem with 5. Looking at it, I'm pretty good at judging this stuff when it comes to the suspensions. And there's one thing with the NHL, there's no precedent with this league. So you can't say, wow, this guy got that for this. They're all over the place. But they're pretty good, the NHL, with their suspensions. And it's sort of a gut feel. It's one of those, it's like a Hall of Fame debate. You just know. You know what I mean? So I watched it. And I don't care what other people say. I didn't even know what other people's opinions were of it. I didn't see it right away. So I saw people crying about something, but I didn't know. So I wasn't like biased. Oh, he should be suspended. No, he shouldn't be. I judge it for myself. I watched it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's bad. Like this guy, that's bad. What you just tried to do was bad. And then I was like, okay, people are going to ask me what I think he should get. And I thought about it for a couple of minutes, and I was like, well, can make an argument that 3 games would be enough. And then I was thinking, well, you know what? You can also go with 5, right? So I was thinking 3 to 5 games, and then, incidentally, the NHL gave him 4, right? So they were on the same thought pattern as I was. Like Chris Pronger, who was a great defenseman, obviously. He was a big dude. All right, so it's not really like Rempe, because Rempe's not a great player. He's just, he's just a player. But like Chris Pronger was an awesome player. Chris Pronger was a legend and stuff. Chris Pronger was pretty dirty. Like, we all know that. He was a mean-spirited dude on the ice. But at the same point in time, like, he had a point often. Like, he was big, and he would go in to check someone, and he would basically forearm them in the face into the glass and stuff. And he'd say after, listen, I didn't mean to like hit the guy in the face, but he said, look at his size, look at his height, look at my height, and it's inevitable. And he said, I'm not trying to hit the guy in the face. It just happens, right? And it was sort of like, yeah, sort of both, but 2 things can be right. But like Rempe, he doesn't have that like defense. Because you can get away with that if you're a big dude. You can say, listen, the only reason I hit him in the face is because I got my elbow up accidentally, and it was the same level. I didn't go out of my way to elbow him. It was just like the same level, right? But Rempe charged at him. Like, there's no disputing it. And the thing about the NHL, where he's lucky, but it's stupid about the NHL, and I've said this for years, is the NHL punishes players on the extent of the injury of the other player. So he gets 4 games, but nothing really happened to the dude on the Devils. But it was so bad that he deserves 4 games for it. But if Buddy on the Devils would have like went down and cracked his head on the ice, and it would have been an ugly scene, then he would have been suspended for the rest of the year, which is a weird logic to have. Right? It's sort of like, imagine like if you had a gun and you shot at somebody, and the authority said after, yeah, well, you know what? We're not going to charge you because you missed. Right? Like, that's the NHL's like logic. Like, think of it like the NHL with the if you draw blood or not. Like, think how stupid that is. So if you hit someone in the face, with your stick, it's 2 minutes, right? Like high sticking. You know what I mean? Boom. Oh, sorry about that accident. Oh, yeah, accident, right? It happened, oh, sorry, didn't mean to do that, meant to do it, right? Where someone just gets the stick up and hits someone in the face with it. Fine, you get 2 minutes for high sticking. But if you high stick someone and they bleed, then, hey, it's 5 minutes. It's a big deal. It's big panic time. It's like, whatever. You hit the guy in the face with your stick. One guy might bleed. Another guy might not bleed. George St. Pierre is one of the best MMA fighters of all time. Whatever, dude. I could punch George St. Pierre and he'd get a bruise. Like, you don't have to be, like, seriously. Like George St. Pierre would tell you himself. It's true. It's like a Quebecer thing, right? And like George St. Pierre said, he goes, basically, man, he goes, I can get touched and I get a mark. And he goes, so after fights, I look worse than I really was. But He goes, it's just my skin or whatever. He goes, I bruise easily and I get marks easily and I bleed easily. But he goes, I'm not really hurt, right? So it's a stupid logic. It's sort of like judging in the UFC, which people do, right? Which, you know what I mean? People say, oh, well, look at that fighter's face and look at the other fighter's face. And sometimes, yeah, I mean, sometimes it's obvious, right? Like the other night with O'Malley and Vera there. You know, Vera's face was effed up when O'Malley's face wasn't, right? I mean, there was a rightful winner. But as I stated, like just because somebody bleeds doesn't mean that they were hurt more or less, right? Like, so like I said, like in about the logic of the NHL, you get hit in the face with a stick, but since you're not bleeding, it doesn't matter as much. So Rempe's lucky Buddy wasn't seriously injured. Otherwise, then they would have tagged him for the rest, 20 games the rest of the year or something like that. But now this kid, though, is under the microscope of the National Hockey League. And he's gonna have to watch what he does now for real, because next time he does something, dude, the kid's been in the league for like a month, and he's caused chaos. And it's one thing to fight. Nobody has a problem with it. You come into the league, you want to make a name for yourself. It's par for the course. Everybody knows that. But what he did last night, not good. Not good. Deserves the suspension. But with that being stated, the Rangers are still a dangerous freaking hockey team and built for the playoffs. If I had to pick two teams right now, actually, and we've talked a lot about futures, it's time to start narrowing it down. But I might live to regret this, but I don't do this often. Like, I don't, in the past couple of years, a lot of people have been blinded by the Carolina Hurricanes, all right, and how good they are. And I've sort of known they're good, but they're not cup good, right? They're good, but they're missing a couple of, they just don't have all the pieces in place. Yet, the last time I rode the Carolina bandwagon for real, they won the Stanley Cup. And, that year I just sort of had a weird feeling about them and stuff. And I was like, it was the year with Cam Ward. I think it was 2006. And I was like, this is the Canes. They're just built for this. This is everything. The Canes are going to win. I'm starting to buy into the Carolina Hurricanes for real. Like that the Canes are like legitimate Eastern Conference contenders and can play with anybody, can beat anybody. They did a great job at the trade deadline, making their team stronger. If there's anything you could argue, you could say, wow, what about their goaltending? You can say that about a lot of teams, right? But wow, what about their goaltending? But I think Anderson is good enough as long as he stays healthy. He can get hot. But if I had to say two teams, I know the Florida Panthers are supposedly the team to beat. But to me, the New York Rangers and the Carolina Hurricanes are the value picks right now in the Eastern Conference.
Laying points on the road in college basketball is an absolute landmine. I would not do it. I won't do it the rest of the year. I'm done doing that because it just consistently loses.
I mean, 3 possessions in a 9-point game in which the opposition now is the clock, not the actual team you're facing, right?
Right.
And these guys are taking up shots. I mean, it's just like, that's why it's the NBA.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Athletes in Canada, Wayne Gretzky, Connor McDavid, no longer can be part of the sports betting ads.
Now, what's interesting is there is technically a carve-out that that will still let these athletes and celebrities appear in sportsbook ads, but it's only if those ads are slanted toward responsible gaming. So you could still have a Connor McDavid saying, hey, bet responsibly on TV in Ontario.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
4.22. The fastest man alive.
The guy just made himself a whole lot of money, did he not? By now holding the record for the fastest 40-yard dash. But if it's one thing we know is that doesn't translate into quality football players in the NFL. So somebody will bite and overdraft him because he simply ran faster than everyone else. It's just rinse and repeat.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Well, we told you that the T-Wolves are a different team with Rudy Gobert, right? Everybody talks about Karl Anthony Towns so much, but Rudy Gobert is like the real key to this team, obviously, along with Anthony Edwards. And they're beating the Clippers right now 89-83 as underdogs. Now the T-Wolves are minus 4.5-point favorites. It's funny, too. Remember how much people mock Gobert over the last couple of years? And now, oh, he's the defensive. He's so good. He's such a key part of their team. It's like, no, he was good before. You were just stupid before, and you're all a bunch of sheep, right? It's like Jared Goff. Oh, Jared Goff's terrible and stuff. Yeah, okay, well, whatever. Jared Goff is just consistently hung around the NFL and put up numbers every year, right? Now, Jared Goff, hey, Jared Goff. Right? Like people, J.J. McCarthy is part of this cycle now, right? All the yokels that rip J.J. McCarthy will be talking about how great he is in 2-3 years. Like maybe it's because social media exists and people, I don't know, I have a good memory for this stuff, but people's opinions and everything sort of lingers and stays around forever. But like with NFL free agency, I'm going to get into this in level 3. And my Buffalo Bills, not the Bills team, but I am a Bills fan, obviously, but Bills fans and Bills media are the worst at this, in which nobody is more loyal and overestimates the players on their team more than Bills fans do, right? Waiting at the airport, coming back, love them to death, right? We love you, Gabe Davis, right? But if the players are on the team anymore, they suck right away. And the Bills, it's crazy. I seen the Bills media, pretty much everyone that they let go was a good release. And everyone that signed somewhere else, oh, we wouldn't have paid them that. It's like, okay, but weren't these the same players that you guys all thought they could win the Super Bowl last year? So I guess they can't suck that much, right? Right? Like the same people that are all going crazy now about Derrick Henry on the Baltimore Ravens, the same people have been saying, well, Derrick Henry isn't the same anymore, and he doesn't bring as much impact anymore, right? It's all just a bunch of talking head crap. They don't even mean what they say. They just say it. Let's roll. Level 3 has begun. This is Sports Rage. I am Morency. They're playing hockey right now in the Emerald City. 2-1 for the Las Vegas Golden Knights early in the third period of play over to Seattle Kraken. NBA basketball. Sacramento are a crazy team, man. Like Sacramento, like if Sacramento were a college basketball team with the like March Madness, like who would they be the equivalent of? BYU, maybe. Like Sacramento would be no. You know there. Oh, Seattle just scored. We got a tie game 2-2. You know who they are? They're Kentucky. That's who Sacramento are. Hey, leaving De'Aaron Fox there for you, Tommy. Kentucky. That's who they're Kentucky, Sacramento. Like the Sacramento Kings are capable of like beating anybody, right? I don't know about like in a 7-game series, but like if the Kings are balling and everything's, you know what I mean, they show up and everyone's on their game. Sacramento can compete with, Minnesota's the 1 seed. They can beat Minnesota, right? Like it's not like Minnesota are much better than they are, but Minnesota are a hell of a lot more consistent than they are. Like, you don't know what you're going to get with Sacramento. Look at the other night. Sacramento, they're down by 19 to the Lakers, and then they end up like drilling them for the rest of the game. They're just absolutely murdering the Milwaukee Bucks tonight. They're about to go wire to wire. All right, like Sacramento are good, but I find them to be frustrating that they're not consistent enough with what they do. But they're a talented basketball team. But I have a hard time like buying in. They're a fun team to bet on. Normally, I can read them pretty well. Their games are usually close. Milwaukee are just hitting a wall here tonight. As soon as Milwaukee this, Milwaukee that, they're dialing it up. Shout out to everyone joining us on Sirius XM Channel 159. This is Sports Rage. I am Gabriel Morency.